follow along with this project, you will need a Cricut Maker or a Maker 3. You won't be able to follow this project in the exact same way with an Explore or a Joy, as unfortunately those aren't compatible with the blade that I will be using. But if you want to know how to create a similar project with the Explore, let me know in the comments and then I'll know to make that video. My name is Kelly and let's get clacking. You will also need painter's tape, a strong grip cutting mat, knife blade with drive housing, and then some inks that you may want to use to create a super cool look. So to create this cover, I'm going to be using Basswood. You can use balsa wood, but I'm using Basswood as it's what I have access to at the moment. You can even use heavy chipboard, though the effect is not going to be the same as what we're going to get on this project today. I will be using a piece of heavy chipboard towards the end, but I'll go into detail into that a little bit later. The pages of the mini album, I'm going to be using a 330 GSM or a 200-ish pound craft board. To hold the mini album together, I'm going to be using 4cm or 1.5-inch ring binders. And I will leave affiliate links down in the description for everything that you may need for this project. All files that I use today will be available to download through a link in the description if you want to recreate this exact project for personal use only. If you enjoy using these files, please consider subscribing for more Cricut videos in the future, and if you're feeling extra generous, I would love it if you would buy me a coffee. Oh, thank you. Or sign up to my Patreon with the links below. So once you've downloaded the files that you need for this tutorial, we're going to click on Upload in Cricut Design Space, Upload Image, and I'm going to browse for the file that I created and upload it into Design Space. It is an SVG file, so you won't need to make any further adjustments. You can just click Upload. I'm going to select it and add it to my canvas. I'm going to make this a tiny bit bigger and increase the width to 14.5 centimeters or around 5 3/4 inches. The nice part about this project is we don't really have to do anything else further. We can just make sure that our machine selection is correct and click on Make It. And as you can see in this type of design, there are no super intricate details that we will need to use. Like those little inside bits, we won't need them. So we can just click Continue. We know that our design will work very well. And I'm going to turn the Maker 3 on so that we can connect to it. Now I do have the Basswood set as one of my favorite materials because I've been playing with it quite a lot recently. But I also find that this doesn't quite cut through at the moment. I'm not sure if my blade is a little bit blunt, but I like to have it cut through just a little bit more. And please make sure to always do your test cut before you cut the entire door. It's really important that you do your test cuts, especially when working with the knife blade, because you can so easily cut through your mat. So just cut a small little heart on the setting that you might want to use to see if it will cut all the way through. I've found that the art illustration board setting works a little bit better for me. It has a few more passes and the same pressure as the Basswood, so it's a little bit better for me in this case. So I'm going to click Done, and it is asking me if I want to calibrate my knife blade. You can calibrate your knife blade if you want to. Maybe it's something that I should do as well, but I'm just going to throw caution to the wind and click no. Now my machine is telling me to load the knife blade into clamp B. And from here we can also see what the knife blade looks like. So if you're not sure if you have a knife blade, I will put an image of it here on the screen for you, but you can also look to see exactly what blade it is that we need to use. So our work is done in Cricut Design Space. Now we just need to load up our mat, our blade, and we're ready to go. Like I mentioned, we are going to be using the purple strong grip mat, painter's tape, and our Basswood. So I'm going to remove the protective sheeting from my mat, place my Basswood onto my mat, and just for good measure, we are going to tape it down. If you can, try to not get the tape in the area that it will cut. It just means that it'll just cut through just that little bit less. On the edges, it's not always possible. On this side and the top, it is totally possible. So I'm going to try and avoid that as much as I can. Make sure that your wood is solidly secured onto your cutting mat. You can even use your brayer for this job as well if you like. I'm happy with what I have, so I'm going to move my star rollers all the way to the one side of the machine, load the mat into the machine, change my blade, and then start the cut. And now we sip our coffee or tea while it's busy cutting. It is going to be doing 17 passes. So this is the kind of project that is going to take a very long time. I would suggest always staying near to your Cricut while it's busy cutting. I don't like to completely leave these things alone, as sometimes, you know, the wood could dislodge from the mat or something like that, and then you've left the room, and then, well, we all know what happens. But you definitely don't have to be looking at it 24/7 while it cuts. For some reason, every single time that I cut this basswood, I find that it throws me a red light at some point during the cutting, 9 times out of 10 more towards the end. And what this means is that the machine has encountered a problem. It's gotten stuck somewhere. We can see that nothing is actually stuck, so I like to think that she's just being a drama queen. So I'm going to switch it off. This is the only way to do this. There is no other way to do this. And we're going to turn it on, and it's going to spit out the mat. Our next option is to, 1, cut it again, so we can load it in and hope that the cut lines line up. But because we have done several of the passes, I think I managed to get through 13 or 14 of the 17 passes, we don't actually have to. This is pretty much almost cut the entire way through, as we can see there. Almost cut all the way through. So we will be able to complete the rest of these cuts using just our craft knife. It's not ideal, but the end product is absolutely worth it. So I'm going to unload this from the mat, and don't forget to cut another one of these as well, because you will need 2 of them, one for the front and one for the back of the mini album. So we can remove our painter's tape first and keep it nearby, because you can use it for the second door that you're going to cut. And I'm going to flip the mat over and just make sure that I gently remove it from the mat, even though we know that it is perfectly fine. And once you're done with your strong grip mat, don't forget to put the protective sheeting back onto the mat so that it doesn't lose more of its stick. The insert pages of this album are custom made to fit this exact same template. So I'm going to show you how to cut these pages next. Now that we've uploaded the page onto our canvas, we're going to make a few adjustments. I like to right-click and ungroup them first, though it doesn't really matter, but it makes life easier to select things. So in the Layers panel, I'm going to look at the different layers that we have for this project. We have the actual page itself, and then we have the 2 lines. Now, when you upload something into Cricut Design Space, the lines that we should use for scoring are actually going to be set to basic cut. So we need to select both of them, and I'm just holding Shift on my keyboard to select both of them. And I'm going to select the basic cut operation drop-down and change that to score, as we definitely don't want it to cut in that section. Then the next easy step is to just select everything, right click and attach. That will mean that when we go to the next page, everything will stay exactly in that place, because we need it to be able to fold those little sections and score them correctly. The sizing that I have for this will work perfectly with the 15 centimeter or 5.75 inch door frame that we did. And the maximum width of this page will be 29.2 centimeters, and the height will be 18.4 centimeters. I like to use my 12 by 24 inch mat here. So what I'll do is I will use much longer pieces of craftboard and cut 3 of them at a time. And of course you can cut as many or as few pages as you want. And this particular style of page will allow you to have a pocket that comes in at the top. So I'm going to click Make It, and then you can see it fits perfectly in between that section there. If you want to cut 3 of them, you can just increase the project copies to 3, hit Apply, and it will make 3 of them. Now it's separated them out into 3 different mats. So what you'll need to do here is hit Material Size and select the 30.5 by 61 centimeter or the 12 by 24 inch. And then it will put all 3 of them onto one 12 by 24 inch mat, and you'll have a little bit of space extra at the bottom. So you waste a lot less material and you can do a lot more in one go. It's great. We then hit Continue, connect to our machine, and then we're going to select Craft Board, as I'm going to be cutting, like I mentioned, the 330 GSM craft board. You can use your double scoring wheel. If you don't have a double scoring wheel, you can hit Edit Tools and change it to either the single scoring wheel or the scoring stylus. I'm going to be a little bit lazy and I'm going to use the scoring stylus, even though it won't give me as good of a score as what it would if I had used the double scoring wheel. The double scoring wheel is preferred if you are using above a 300 GSM cardstock or craft board. But if you are using a lower craft board for your insert pages, maybe you're using a normal 216 GSM, then the scoring stylus will work perfectly for you. And we're going to hit apply. So I'm going to load everything onto a mat and we're going to cut it all out. So I'm going to use my 12 by 24 inch green standard grip mat, load it up, use my brayer to make sure that it is really stuck on there, and cut it with my machine. Next, we're going to cut the piece that's going to go behind the basswood section, and that one is going to be our heavy chipboard piece. Now, this particular section of the door does have some floating pieces on it that won't actually stay put. So what I like to do here is to double layer it. So I'm going to use the contour feature and remove out these little sections so that we can have a solid layer and a layer with the decoration. So I'm going to use the contour feature in the bottom right hand of your screen, and when you hit that, it will open up the design that you can see. Now what we need to do here is remove all of these little sections of the design, and you can see them being removed or re-added in the actual design itself, and it will completely change the look of our design. So I'm going to hit hide all contours, but I also need to make sure that I'm cutting those little circles, as that is super important for us to remember. And I'm going to just click away on the screen once I'm done. We now have a door with no little pieces on the inside, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this out of heavy chipboard. And I don't like to use the heavy chipboard setting on my machine. The setting that I prefer to use is just normal chipboard, the 1.5mm chipboard, as I find that it cuts through perfectly. Heavy chipboard actually cuts all the way through my mat. So make sure, again, to do your test cuts when it comes to cutting this type of material, as you don't want to accidentally cut through your mat. That's a heartache. At this stage, you should have two of these, and however many pages you want in your album of these. I've cut 6, as I generally tend to go with a 6-page, but again, totally up to you. We're going to put those two off to the side, and we're going to work with this one. Now, of course, we know it had an error in the middle of the cut. No problem. All we do is we just take our trusty craft knife, and we're just going to go through the pieces that didn't cut. So, like I said, I just take my craft knife and gently go through, paying special attention to the corners, as the corners is typically where you will get the most resistance, as that's where the knife blade tends to not cut as well. And now we just work through all the little pieces. And now that your door is finally all cut out, we can place them on top of each other. So what you will need to do is, with this one, you need to be careful that you don't do them both exactly the same. So you need to put the one on the one side, and then the other one needs to go on the other side. As an example, when both of the little sections with the cutouts are facing you, one of the holes should be on the left and one of the holes should be on the right. That's because we need a front and a back cover to this mini album. So please make sure to take special care to put the one on the one side and the other one on the other side. You can easily just flip it over like that, and then the holes will be on the left hand side and then the holes will be on the right hand side. So take special care for that. If you want to, you can also mirror this design in Cricut Design Space, but because it's the same on either side, it shouldn't matter too much. Next, before we glue this down, we can do one of a few different things. We can stain our board, you can paint it, whatever you would feel like doing to this, I got this incredible look on this one by using distress inks. So of course you can do exactly the same thing, and I'll show you exactly how I did it. I'm going to be using a few different colors of distress ink. So I'm going to start with Vintage Photo and just give a nice line on the side, and then I'm going to use Walnut Stain as well and give another line on the side of my craft mat. Next, what I'm doing is I'm just taking some water, just giving it a light spray. So now I just take a normal blending brush and blend it around in the ink and just start moving it around. If you want to, while you're busy with this, you can also place the little bits on the inside and kind of do everything at once. Make sure to line up the correct bits to the side of the page that they're supposed to be in. As an example, this one has a little lighter line on this side, and I know that the lighter line is going down there, so those pieces I'm going to place on that side. And this way at least you'll kind of get a little bit of an even gradient color. Once you've colored pretty much everything, make sure to go in and get the little side bits, as I didn't do that on mine and it doesn't look as nice as what this one will. It looks like I've added a little bit too much water, as mine seems to be bowing just a little bit, so I'm going to let that dry for a little bit while I work on these ones. I'm going to place it under my mat so that it has a little bit of pressure and that it doesn't bow too much. Once you've got the basic color done, make sure to get the correct side of the hardboard, and what you can do is even add a little bit of color to this as well. Once it's dried a little bit, make sure to go over it again just to look to see if you've missed any spots that got water but not color, and just clean them up a little bit. Next, I'm going to use a strong embellishment glue. I'm using Jewel Bond, as this is what I usually use in South Africa, but any strong glue will do well, or a wood glue or something like that. And put a very small amount on the back of your door frame. Very carefully place it onto your door, the backing of the door, lining up the frames, and then just moving it into place if you need to. If the glue peeks through the corners, try and get that out before it dries. You can also leave this under something heavy if it's bowed quite a bit, but this seems to be all right. So now I'm going to go in and glue all of these little pieces down. And now is where I like to do two things. Number one, ink up the edges so that they are also a similar shade. You can use a slightly darker shade, like this is Ground Espresso. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that to the edges. And once you are done with that, you can either let it dry a little bit, dry it a little bit with a heat gun, or just go back in with a little bit more ink and blend out a little bit more. This is where I like to kind of try and create some gradient and movement in the color. So I'll leave some sections darker, leave some sections lighter, just have a little bit of fun with the color. With blending, what typically tends to happen when you go over and over and over it with varying colors, varying gradients, varying pressures, amounts of water, you tend to end up with a lovely soft look like this. Now it's a little bit lighter than the other door that we have, but very similar kind of style and look. And that seems to be where the tape was on the basswood, so lucky me to have chosen the correct side. I'll just put an embellishment there, it's fine. There's nothing an embellishment can't save. Repeat the process on both of your doors, remembering to please have one mirrored, and one with the holes on the left and one with the holes on the right. The next thing we are going to play with is the inserts. So the inserts are already scored, so we can fold them. And you'll see the holes line up almost perfectly. And fold over this side as well. Use your bone tool and just give it a nice flat edge. And then you can either use embellishment glue or red tape, however you feel comfortable with closing your sides. I'm just going to use some 6mm red tape. Peel off the one side just a little bit. You don't want to peel off the entire thing. Line up your pages so that they match on the bottom and the top. Press it down on the side where the tape is exposed. Hold that side, pull the tape, and you won't have to worry about it shifting. If you want to close up this side to make it a pocket, then you can close that up and you can add some red tape there as well. Probably should have done that earlier. So I'm just popping this open and placing the red tape inside. I like to use my weeding tool to remove the backing of red tape. Remove that easily. The next one, and then we can close that up there as well. And there we have our page pocket. So we have our page and our cover, and they line up to work perfectly together. And then once we have both of our covers and as many of the sleeves as you want, you can line them all up and pop your binding ring through. And there you have your mini album, and you can add as many pages as you want to this, and you can decorate it the way that you like. Perfect. Moves nice and easily because the holes are quite big for this particular binding ring, so if the holes were a little bit smaller it wouldn't work very well. But if you want to add some fun flaps and whatnot to your folder, check out this playlist here. There may not be very many videos there at the moment, but there are going to be in the future. Thank you so much for joining. Subscribe for more Cricut tutorials, and I'll see you in the next one. And remember, be kind to someone today.